Take one.
Take one. Hello, welcome to Firehouse Stories, where we tell you behind the scenes stories of the fire service and the people that work in the fire service. My name's Bob. This is Doug, and we've got some stories for you today. Now, sometimes we have to pull practical jokes on the fire department just to blow off a little bit of steam, to try to counteract some of the bad stuff we see. So Doug's got a story about that today.
Yeah, we were working. Bob and I working together at downtown station. We had a new recruit who was just on the job. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was about a month, I guess. Anyways, he was hot, and then this chicken that was going to the college in town.
Good-looking guy, you mean?
He's a good-looking guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminded me a lot of myself.
Yeah. When you were young, of course. Well,
Still.
okay.
Anyways, this girl that was going to college, she was taking the photographic course or whatever to be a photographer. Anyhow, she was going to come to the station and take some pictures of him on the fire truck in his gear. Oh, and
Well, he was brand new on the job. Give him a break,
Anyways, he was up in the jump seat of the pump, and she had his camera set up. In the umbrellas and with the lights
What
behind
type
them.
of camera was it?
It's a box camera.
So what's that?
Well, it's a camera. It looks like a box. And you look, it's a
Then-
rubber
then-
lens.
Then you have this stuff that goes over the back of your head?
Yeah. And you get underneath it and
Okay.
take the picture. Like an old-fashioned thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Anyhow, where he's doing that, we're down there. All the guys are down in the apparatus floor doing training while the new recruit's getting his pictures taken. So he's getting some crap over that. Tell you, we were teasing him left, right, and center. Anyways, the lights come on and the tones come in, and only the pump, which is what he's on, is going out. They're going. I think they went to a car fire or garbage fire or something like that. It was only going to take the pump. So away they go, and we got the radio on, and I hear it's going. So I said to the girl, I said, he's going to be a while getting back. If you want, you can, if you got some studying to do or whatever. She said, well, I actually do. And I said, well, why don't you go out in the car or your van and do some studying? And she said, I said, just keep an eye for the truck to come back. So she said, okay, what about my equipment? I said, it's fine. Well, the worst thing you can do is leave a camera around firefighters. So anyways, what we did was take a few obscene photographs over the camera. The firefighters did. I'm not going to share what they were, but you can leave them to your imagination. But anyhow, she took off and she's out there. She's busy in her van, reading her stuff or whatever. And so I looked and she got this camera there, and it's got a rubber eyepiece. So I went over to the truck one. And I took paper towel and I wiped all the soot from around the exhaust.
The carbon?
With no smell in it.
Yeah.
And I wiped it all around the rubber piece on the eyepiece. And then so the pump comes back. And I said to the guy, the new recruit, I said, what you're going to see is going to be funny. What you're going to see me do is you're going to wonder what I'm doing. Just ignore me. And I said, and ignore what you see funny. I said, don't be laughing, giving it away. I said, it'd be the worst thing you want to ever do around here. Oh, I won't like that. He said, what did you do? I said, just listen to me. So she comes over and she said, are you ready? And he, yeah, sure. So I stood back and I watched. And she goes and she puts the canopy over her head and she puts her eyepiece up against the eyepiece, cranks it in there like that. She says, just move the light to your right there a little bit. So he reaches and moves it over. Well, here, I'll get it like that. She pulls her head. Well, she got this ring around her eye.
A black ring around
Black ring around her eye. It's perfect. And she goes over and she moves the camera, and the new recruit looks at me like that, and I'm like, shh, don't say a word like that. And he's like, oh my God. Like that. So she did that about 4 or 5 times. Well, the black was all on her eye now. It was off the eyepiece. So So I went and took some more paper towel and I wiped the exhaust pipe again. Up a little further, getting more soot. And then when she had her back turned, I'm over there wiping it on the eyepiece, and he's looking at me going, I go, sure enough. She comes over and buries it right on the eyepiece again. Now she looks like that little dog on the Little Rascals. If you don't remember it, you have to bring her on the eye. Anyhow, she takes these pictures and she's all fixed up, all gathered up. And so the new recruit says to her, he said, well, where are you going? She said, well, I'm meeting all of my friends down at one of these crazy bars down in the downtown area. And she said, I'm meeting them for a couple of drinks. Well, are you going home first? No, I'm going there right now. And she left, and I looked at her and I go, she left, and that's where he never saw the pictures again. He never heard from her again.
That was the end of it.
That was it. That was the romance was ended. The picture taking ended. Photography, no pictures, nothing.
Like
funny.
that carbon black, you know, it's a powder that you can buy, right? And you remember the guy that had the dog whistle?
Mm-hmm.
He had a chrome dog whistle, and it sort of looked, but it had a bowl in it that had this held carbon black, and you'd fill it up, and you'd give it to someone to blow. It's a unhearable dog whistle.
Yep.
And they'd blow it. All the neighborhood dogs would start to bark, right? And blow it again, you know, and they'd bark again. And anyways, as he blows it, all the carbon comes over.
Oh,
remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. The days nowadays you can't do that stuff, but we certainly had fun with it.
I'm sure you can.
I'm sure they're making new memories for sure. But when we started, it was sort of a while back, and
Not that far.
yeah, the rescue units were sort of a new concept. You know, we were on the department just when they started to get some, you know, dedicated rescue units with the
Get rid of the
extrication
horses.
tools. But the first ones were like bread trucks, reconstructed bread trucks. You know, you'd open the two back doors, and there'd be sort of like a little shelf that was waist high.
Yeah.
And then the walls that would go up to the ceiling, and the ceiling would go back to a back wall that was solid.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have your SCBA that was on racks along the wall, a couple of them, plus things like the Stoke stretcher and everything that you would use for the rescue unit. And on the very end wall, they had one that was mounted in one of these brackets that you can pull out. You know, they just sort of, they hug the bottle and they pull out. And underneath it, there was a dry powder extinguisher. And so we got a call a day in the fall, and me and this other guy are in the back, and it was a long run, and en route we said, geez, we better turn the heater on in here. So we turned the heater on, and just as we turned the heater on, I went up, the rescue unit went up, and I went up like that and came back down. And,
Over a bump.
yeah, over a bump, and ended up coming right out of the bracket.
Oh, jeez.
But I fell on the handle of this dry powder extinguisher that had a pin in it, of course, but it sheared the pin.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, this white powder starts to
firing
come
off
up,
in the back.
and it's coming from just where the heater was, you know. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, first of all, I'm a little bit off balance, right, with this mask on, and my feet are up ahead, and I'm sort of at an angle like that, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, holy shit, that heater's on fire.
Meanwhile, it's a dry powder.
Dry powder going off. So I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, and we ended up spending quite the rest of the afternoon cleaning up the inside of this rescue unit.
Especially that powder. Oh my God.
But there's no communications from the back to the front. So you know, the default way of doing things was, you know, you get in the back, you knew where it is, right? And generally you had an idea.
Yep.
You pull up to a place and you stop, and then you'd come out the back, run around, and you meet the captain, and then we'd go as a team. So we got a call one time out into a major 4-lane highway. It wasn't our district. It was a district of a smaller town that was maybe 15 miles away. But they had a car accident, a pileup, and the pileup was, you know, quite a few trucks and cars, and they sent their rescue unit out there, and sized up the situation, and they asked for us. So they sent our rescue unit out. So they got in the back, and they went out and got up on the 401 and started down the road. It was about a, like say, 15-minute ride, 10-minute ride. And then they stopped, which was our default way. You pile out the back. But why they stopped was because, you know, from the time that the accident happened to the time we got there,
Well, traffic back
there was about a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile traffic backing up. So they stopped, but the reason they stopped was because they had this traffic backup and they're just trying to figure out a way around if they should go on the shoulder or not. Finally, they decided to go on the shoulder. We stepped out of the rescue, didn't even stop to close the door, right? Or they'd have known, right?
It's great.
And all of a sudden, the rescue unit starts to go away, and we're looking, and as it pulls out and onto the shoulder, we're looking at this mile-long line of cars coming, right? But what was even more funny was when we finally got to the accident scene. You know, the captain got out and he was expecting us to come out and meet him, right?
Exactly.
And he went, and we were gone.
There you go. Jesus
He
Christ.
had no idea where we were, you know, but we finally got to the scene by a tow truck operator came by about 3 minutes later.
You hit the ride.
And we hitched a ride on the shoulder with this tow truck operator. That's how we got there.
Too funny.
Well, thanks for tuning in. If you like this, press like. We post every Friday. If you subscribe, we'll just come right to your mailbox and you won't have to search for us. So thanks for tuning in and goodbye.